What is up? Welcome to Every Single Guitars, where the goal of this channel is to review every single guitar ever made. Today, I decided to switch up a little bit. I realized that the majority of the guitars that I've been reviewing have been Gibsons, Fenders. What else have I reviewed? Epiphone, which is part of Gibson. Basically guitars that are pretty pricey, pretty expensive. Now thinking about it, you know, the walnut Fender Strat, that's like over 2 grand. 71 Les Paul recording, that's over 2 grand. You know, the Japanese Tele, that's like around $1 grand. So like when I've been looking at the prices, I've been realizing that those are pretty expensive guitars. And the channel of this channel, or the goal of this channel, is to review every single guitar, not just $1,000 to $2,000 range guitar. So I decided to switch it up. Today I have a vintage 1970s and early 1970s. I think this is a 1972. It is a Yamaha FG-150, the infamous red label Nippon Gakki, or Gakki, or Gakki. I don't know how to pronounce it, but basically the Yamaha red label. For those of you guys who aren't too familiar with the red label Yamaha guitar models, you know, everybody knows Yamaha. They're one of the biggest and most reputable, not just a music company, a music manufacturer, but they produce a variety of products, you know, motorcycles, guitar, a piano. My first clarinet was a Yamaha, or my first and only clarinet was a Yamaha actually. So this company produces a very wide variety of different products. But you know, for all you guitar enthusiasts out there, there's like a cult following of the red label Yamaha guitars from like the 60s to I believe the 80s. Even though the Yamaha red labels, such as this one here, is a laminate guitar, apparently this particular red label series that Yamaha released are very high quality in terms of playability, the tone it produces, the durability. Basically, for the price that you pay, the return is incredible, apparently. I've actually owned a couple of red labels in the past, and by a couple I mean 2, not including this one. This will be my 3rd. I've only owned 1 model of the red label, and that was the FG-150. I've owned 2 of those. You know, it wasn't because I was looking for it. You know, I didn't specifically look for the red label 180. You know, it just happened to be on the market and there was a good deal, so I decided to get it. You know, and from my experience with the FG-180, the red label, it was a good guitar. It really was a good guitar. For the price that you pay, I thought the tone was very good. Or maybe the cultish following of the red label kind of hyped it up for me a little bit, but regardless, I thought it was a pretty good guitar. The thing that didn't really stick with me, the reason why I decided to sell it, was just the neck. It's a very roundish, small ovalish type of neck. It's a similar neck to this actually. I'm not sure if the red labels all have similar style necks. I think this has like a soft V maybe, but the neck was just too small for me. Maybe it's because I have hands on the larger side. You know, I could like wrap it around, but you know, even though the tone was pretty good, the neck was just too small for me. That is the same case as this guitar, but I decided to pick up the 150 because, you know, it was on the market, and I've never actually owned a 150. I've owned the 180, and when it comes to acoustic guitars, I actually prefer this type of body style, like the OM-ish style body style, rather than the dreadnought style, which is a little bit bigger. So first impression of this guitar, I got this yesterday. Literally yesterday. I cleaned it up a little bit. I took off the strings, put on new strings, kind of set it up a little bit, cleaned it up, oiled the fretboard. It's like in new condition basically. But first impression, for early 70s, I'd say this is in excellent condition. There are some superficial scratches, a little scratch right here, but it doesn't go through the wood. On the back, there's a little scratch right here, and on the back right here, but nothing major, nothing where I'm concerned about the guitar. The FG-180s that I've owned, I think they were like mid to late 70s, and that was in worse condition than this for sure. Yeah, for an early 70s, regardless of what model, you know, just for an early 70s guitar, this is in really good condition. You know, I don't do too much guitar setup and, you know, anything related to that, but the action is kind of on the higher side. I don't really know how to lower the action. I assume I could just shave off the saddle, but I'm not trying to really mess with that kind of stuff. You know, especially for a guitar that's a collectible like this, I don't want to mess with it. I just want the buyer to do whatever adjustments that he prefers to do, because everyone has a different playing style and they like an action a certain height. But this is on the higher action, but for me, I prefer an action like this. Maybe a little bit lower because I do a lot of finger picking as well, and for higher action, it's just easier to play for finger picking, for me personally. So I can tell that this guitar is all original. There is like basically no fretwear, and I'm sure that there was no refretting done. The tuners are original Yamaha tuners. It has the Yamaha label engraved, and the FG-150 that I've owned also had this type of tuner. The nut, surprisingly, is original. I could clearly tell that this is an original because there's no signs of modifications, and also the aging of the nut shows with the yellowish hue. A lot of the times on older acoustics that I've owned, a lot of the owners, they replace the nut. You can clearly tell if the nut's replaced just by looking at the color. It's kind of hard to fake a nut color that ages naturally because, you know, this type of color is really hard to fake. And it also has the classic Yamaha truss rod cover for the Red Label series. You know, like I said, for an early 70s guitar, this is in really good condition. You know, I wish that the neck was kind of a different profile. It's a good neck, but it's not really a neck that I personally prefer. Like I said, because I have bigger hands, so it just kind of feels like I'm playing a really miniature style guitar. Nevertheless, it's a good sounding guitar for a laminate, and for the price, I mean, this is an excellent purchase if you see any type of Red Label on the market. So let's see how it sounds like. I'm gonna tune it real quick. Oh, it is in tune. It's kind of weird. I think it's because it's not intonated properly. When you go past the 7th fret, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, the action gets really high, so it's kind of hard to play. You gotta press a lot harder, but that kind of stuff can be easily modified by setting it up. But like I said, I don't want to mess with the guitar. When I buy a guitar, I just clean it put on new strings. And if the action is really low or really high, I would set it up a little bit, but I try to keep it original for the most part. Because like I said, you know, I don't really buy to keep for long term unless it's like a guitar that I just can't part with. So I'd rather have the buyer do all the modification himself or herself to whatever preference they prefer, because I don't know, you know, what kind of playing style the buyer plays, you know. But yeah, an early 1970s Yamaha FG-150 acoustic guitar. I've tried to do some research on the serial number. This one starts with an I or a T. I believe these were made it's like 66 or 68 to 72, but the serial number stuff is not really set in stone from what I've read. So it's kind of hard to truly, you know, find the exact date of manufacture, like what month and the specific year on these red label guitars. But from the serial number that I can see, it's definitely a 70s, an early 70s model from what I can tell. Some guitar manufacturing companies like Fender, you can take off the neck and it has the date stamped, which makes it very easy for people to date the guitars. But for a lot of these Asian companies like Yamaha and like a lot of the lawsuit guitar companies, their serial number dating is really fucked up, and they didn't really do a good job of keeping it in, keeping track of it. You know, at the same time, I don't think their priority was, you know, making sure that, you know, the dates are accurate. I think, you know, a lot of the Asian guitar factories back in the day, in the 60s and 70s, their main goal was to just fucking sell the product, you know. And as long as they had a good sounding guitar, I don't really think they cared about the serial number and stuff. But, you know, if you see a red label Yamaha on the market, I say buy it, just to play with it. And it's also a really good investment because, like I said, there's like a cultish following of this particular model, of the red label series model. So, you know, if you see a red label on the market for a good price, it doesn't hurt to buy. You can only benefit from it, you know, unless you pay a retardedly high amount, like $1,000 bucks, then you shouldn't do it.